Madam Adanna, the nanny's voice trembled on the phone. Your sister is very sick. She's in the hospital. You should come, please. Adanna wasted no time. She left her children with her husband and rushed to the city, her heart racing with worry. When she arrived at the hospital, she found Nnenna pale and weak but alive. Adanna sat by Nnenna's hospital bed, watching her sister's pale face, her chest rising and falling in weak breaths. She had rushed over the moment the nanny called, and now all she could do was sit in helpless silence, staring at the woman who had once been her mirror. When the doctor finally discharged Nnenna, Adanna insisted on bringing her home. Nnenna protested at first, but she was too weak to argue. Adanna wouldn't leave her side. She was determined to nurse her back to health. They drove in silence, Nnenna leaning against the car seat, exhausted. As they entered Nnenna's apartment, a soft voice suddenly echoed from the hallway, drawing Adanna's attention. Mommy, are you back? A little boy, about 5 years old, rushed forward with excitement, his tiny arms wrapping around Nnenna's leg. Adanna froze. Her heart skipped a beat as she took in the sight of the child. His wide, curious eyes, the curve of his smile, and even the way he walked was like looking at a younger version of her husband, Chike. The boy suddenly noticed Adanna standing behind his mother. His eyes grew wide. You look just like mommy, Ifeanyi exclaimed, his voice filled with shock. He let go of Nnenna and moved closer to Adanna, peering at her with an expression of pure wonder. How is that possible? You look just like my mommy. Adanna, caught off guard, quickly knelt down to his eye level, forcing a smile. Yes, I know, she said gently. I'm your mommy's twin sister. Ifeanyi blinked rapidly, his little brow furrowing in confusion. But I've never met you before. Why didn't I know I had an auntie who looks just like my mommy? Why don't you used to visit us before now? Nnenna, standing quietly behind them, cleared her throat, her face tight with tension. Adanna shot her a reassuring glance before returning her attention to the boy. Well, Adanna began softly, choosing her words carefully. Your mommy and I had been apart for a while, but now that we are back together, you will see me more often. There just hadn't been the right time before now, but now I promise you'll get to know me. Ifeanyi looked at her closely, his eyes flicking back and forth between his aunt and his mother. The only difference is mommy is a little slimmer, he observed thoughtfully, crossing his arms like a detective. Adanna chuckled softly. Yes, childbearing puts a little weight on some people. I have 2 kids. You'd meet them soon. So after having them, I added a little weight. That's why your mom seems slimmer. But trust me, we used to be exactly alike. Ifeanyi smiled at that, satisfied with the explanation. That makes sense. I'm glad you are here, Auntie, he said, hugging her around the neck before dashing off to play with his toys. Adanna stood slowly, her mind racing. The resemblance between Ifeanyi and Chike was too strong to ignore. As the boys' laughter echoed from the living room, she turned to face Nnenna, who was already avoiding her gaze. That night, after the nanny had put Ifeanyi to bed, Adanna sat with Nnenna in the living room. The air was thick with tension, unspoken questions swirling between them. Nnenna, Adanna began, her voice trembling slightly. Ifeanyi, he looks, he looks exactly like someone we know. I can't ignore that. And I've been thinking, this probably mean you left when you were pregnant with him. Nnenna's hand shook as she clasped them together in her lap. She had dreaded this moment for years, but now there was no escape. Tears welled up in her eyes as she finally met her sister's gaze. You are right, Adanna, Nnenna whispered, her voice breaking. Yes, he looks like someone we know. He looks like your husband. Ifeanyi is Chike's son. That night, I didn't mean for it to happen. I tried to avoid it, but I was too careful not to blow your cover. I swear I didn't intend for this to happen. You asked me to cover up for you, and I thought everything would go fine, just as you promised. But then Chike came home earlier, and and Adanna's heart pounded in her chest. What happened? She asked softly, though part of her already knew the answer. He wanted the night with you to make it special, Nnenna continued, tears streaming down her face now. He pulled me from bed, and I didn't know what to do. I tried to stay distant, but he started asking why I was acting strange, why I wasn't myself. I didn't want to ruin everything. I didn't want to blow your cover, so I had to pretend to be you. Adanna's breath caught in her throat. She sat frozen, listening as her sister confessed the truth she had feared to hear. That night, we ended up, we, we, we ended up, Nnenna paused, choking on the words. We had sex, Adanna. I didn't want to, but I didn't know how to stop it without giving away everything. I thought it was nothing, since it wasn't my fatal window. I thought I could move on. But then I found out I was pregnant. Adanna stared at her sister in shock. Her heart was breaking, her mind spinning, but she stayed silent, letting Nnenna continue. After I discovered I was pregnant, I was going to terminate it, Nnenna admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. But when I went to the doctor, she told me something that changed everything. Adanna's eyes furrowed. What did she say? Nnenna wiped her tears, swallowing hard. She said I had uterine fibroids and low ovarian reserve. She explained, her voice shaking. It's a condition that makes it hard for women to conceive, and the doctor said it was a miracle I had even gotten pregnant at all. She said if I had terminated the pregnancy, I might never be able to have a child again. It was a 50-50 thing. Adanna gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. Oh my God. I was terrified, Nnenna continued. I didn't want to lose the chance to be a mother, so I kept the baby. I moved to the city, hid the pregnancy, and had Ifeanyi on my own. I've been raising him by myself, Adanna, and I've been living with this guilt every single day. Adanna couldn't hold back her tears any longer. She rushed forward, wrapping her arms around Nnenna, sobbing into her shoulder. Oh, Nnenna, I had no idea you were going through all this. You did it all because of me. I'm so, so sorry. I remember how you were against the idea. I'm so sorry you had to go through all this because of me. Nnenna cried harder, clutching her sister as though she were the only thing holding her together. I didn't know what else to do. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't destroy your marriage, but I didn't want to lose my only chance at being a mother either. I had to move away. I had to keep it a secret. That is why I don't allow you to visit me in the house each time you request it. I come up with being busy, but this is actually the reason. Adanna pulled back slightly, her hands cupping Nnenna's tear-streaked face. You did nothing wrong, Nnenna. I was the one who put you in that position. I asked you to lie for me, to pretend to be me. You did what you thought was right at that time. You don't need to feel guilty anymore. Should have told me. We would have found a way around it. I love you more than anything. You're the only family I have left in the world. Do you think this would be enough reason for me to throw you away? Nnenna blinked at her sister, disbelief written all over her face. You're not angry? Adanna shook her head, tears still streaming down her cheeks. No, Nnenna, I could never be angry with you. You were trying to protect me, to protect my family, and you've been carrying this burden alone for so long. I'm just so sorry I didn't see it any sooner. I didn't even suspect. The sisters held each other again, their sobs mingling in the quiet room. Years of guilt, pain, and secrets were finally being released, and in their place, love and forgiveness took over. After what felt like hours, they pulled away, wiping their tears. There is something else I need to tell you, Nnenna said hesitantly, her voice soft but steady. Adanna looked at her, waiting. I'm engaged, Nnenna revealed, a small hopeful smile appearing on her lips. His name is Emeka, he's a wonderful man and he knows about Ifeanyi. I told him that Ifeanyi's father was an ex who left me, and he's accepted him as his own. Adanna's eyes widened with joy. Oh, Nnenna, that's wonderful news. She pulled her sister into another hug. You deserve happiness, Nnenna. You deserve everything good in this world. Nnenna's smile grew, the weight of her past finally lifting from her shoulders. Thank you, Adanna. And we'll keep this secret, right? Just between us. Adanna nodded firmly. Yes,